friends, how are you? Welcome back to Storytime. If you don't remember me, my name is Megan and I am here to read you a few books. One of my books that I'm going to read is about going back to school because where I am, we're going back to school next week. I can't believe it. I feel like this summer went by just way too fast. But the first book I'm going to read is about a little boy named Alexander who is just having a really crummy day. Have you ever had just like a really bad day and you felt like nothing was going right? If you have, then you're going to appreciate Alexander's story. So the first book I'm going to read is called Alexander and the Terrible, Horrible, No Good, Very Bad Day. And that book is written by Judith Vorst and it was illustrated by Ray Cruz. So remember, that means Judith wrote the words and Ray drew all the pictures. Are you ready? Alexander and the Terrible, Horrible, No Good, Very Bad Day. I went to sleep with gum in my mouth, and now there's gum in my hair. And when I got out of bed this morning, I tripped on the skateboard, and by mistake, I dropped my sweater in the sink while the water was running, and I could tell it was going to be a terrible, horrible, no good, very bad day. Do you ever feel like that when you wake up some days? I've had those days. At breakfast, Anthony found a Corvette Stingray car kit in his breakfast cereal box, and Nick found a junior undercover agent code ring in his cereal box. But in my cereal box, all I found was breakfast cereal. I think I'll move to Australia. What a bummer that his brothers both found toys in their cereal boxes and he didn't. I don't know if they still do that anymore. When I was a kid, you used to get toys in the cereal. It was the best surprise ever, unless somebody else got it first. In the carpool with Miss Gibson let Becky have a seat by the window. Audrey and Elliot got seats by the window too. I was being scrunched. I said I was being smushed. I said if I don't get a seat by the window, I'm going to be car sick. No one even answered. I could tell this was going to be a terrible, horrible, no good, very bad day. At school, Miss Dickens liked Paul's picture of a sailboat better than my picture of an invisible castle. Do you see his picture there? Paul has a picture of a sailboat, and Alexander just has a blank piece of paper that he's calling an invisible castle. Isn't that funny? At singing time, she said I sang too loud. At counting time, she said I left out 16. Who needs 16? I could tell it was going to be a terrible, horrible, no good, very bad day. I could tell because Paul said I wasn't his best friend anymore. He said that Philip Parker was his best friend and that Albert Mayo was his next best friend and that I was only his third best friend. I hope you sit on a tack, I said to Paul. I hope the next time you get a double-decker strawberry ice cream cone, the ice cream part falls off the cone and lands in Australia. That is not very nice of Alexander, is it? I want you to sit on a tack. That's not nice. There were 2 cupcakes in Philip Parker's lunch bag, and Albert got a Hershey bar with almonds, and Paul's mother gave him a piece of jelly roll that had little coconut sprinkles on the top. Guess whose mother forgot to put their dessert in? It was a terrible, horrible, no good, very bad day. That's what it was because after school, my mom took us all to the dentist, and Dr. Fields found a cavity just in me. Come back next week and I'll fix it, said Dr. Fields. Next week, I said, I'm going to Australia. Seems like he's really interested in moving to Australia. What do you think? On the way downstairs, the elevator door closed on my foot. And while we were waiting for my mom to get the car, Anthony made me fall where it was muddy. And then when I started crying because of the mud, Nick said I was a crybaby. And while I was punching Nick for saying crybaby, my mom came back with the car and scolded me for being muddy and fighting. I am having a terrible, horrible, no good, very bad day, I told everyone. No one even answered. Do you think punching his brother was the right thing to do? I don't think that was a very good choice. And I also don't think it was very nice of his brother to push him into a mud puddle. Do you? Sometimes brothers are tough. So then we went to the shoe store to buy some sneakers. Anthony chose white ones with blue stripes. Nick chose red ones with white stripes. I chose blue ones with red stripes. But the shoe man said, we're all sold out. They made me buy plain old white shoes, but they can't make me wear them. Poor Alexander. He just can't catch a break today, can he? When we picked up my dad at his office, he said I couldn't play with the copy machine, but I forgot. He also said to watch out for the books on his desk, and I was as careful as I could, except for my elbow. He also said, don't fool around with his phone, but I think I called Australia. My dad said, please don't pick him up anymore. It was a terrible, horrible, no good, very bad day. Ooh, look at that mess he made on his dad's desk. His dad does not look happy, does he? Look at, he knocked over the ink and everything. Yikes. There were lima beans for dinner. I hate lima beans. There was kissing on TV. Ugh, I hate kissing. My bath was too hot. I got soap in my eyes. My marble went down the drain. And I had to wear my railroad train pajamas. I hate my railroad train pajamas. When I went to bed, Nick took back the pillow he said I could keep, and the Mickey Mouse nightlight burned out. And I bit my tongue. The cat wants to sleep with Anthony, not with me. It has been a terrible, horrible, no good, very bad day. Mom says some days are just like that. Even in Australia. Have you ever had one of those big bummer of a days where just nothing goes your way? You know what? We all have them, unfortunately. It's just part of life. But guess what? The next day will be a little bit better, I promise. All right, you ready for the next book? This book is called The Pout-Pout Fish Goes to School. And this book was written by Deborah Dessen, and the pictures were by Dan Hanna. All right, so remember, that means the words were by Deborah and the pictures by Dan. And this is about the Pout-Pout fish who goes to school for the first time. Let's see. Pout-Pout Fish Goes to School. A long time ago, when Mr. Fish was very small, he headed off to school for the first time of all. With a smooch from his parents and excited for his day, Mr. Fish rushed in. Then he lost his way. Do you think it's normal to get lost at school the first day? I do. I think that happens to a lot of people. The big fish around him knew exactly where to go, finding lockers, finding classes in a fast, smart flow. Mr. Fish, left behind with his grin sinking thin, finally stopped at a doorway and he shyly looked in. Look at all those other fish in the hallways. They all look like they know where they're going, and Mr. Fish looks confused. Class was doing writing, and almost everybody knew it. So he tried to print his name, but he just couldn't do it. So he flub, frowned, and he blub, blubbled. Then he plopped down his pencils, and he counted off his troubles. Trouble 1, I'm not smart. Trouble 2, I'll never get it. Trouble 3, I don't belong. So 4, I should forget it. Ooh, is that a good idea? Were those nice things that Mr. Fish was saying about himself? I don't think so. So he floated with a frown down the long corridor. Then he sneak-peeked a look through another room door. Ooh, I wonder what he'll find. The class was drawing shapes, and almost everybody knew it. So he tried to make a rhombus, but he just couldn't do it. Look at poor Mr. Fish. He just looks so sad, and everybody knows what's going on. He seems very overwhelmed. So he flub, frowned, making blubbles. Then he plopped down his pencil, and he counted off his troubles. Trouble number 1, I'm not smart. Trouble number 2, I'll never get it. Trouble number 3, I don't belong. So 4, I should forget it. Mr. Fish is being very tough on himself right now. So he drifted down the hallway with a doubt face till he spied another doorway. Maybe this is my place. The class was doing math, and most everybody knew it. So he tried long division, but he just couldn't do it. Long division? Mr. Fish is trying long division on his first day at school. That is hard stuff. So he flub, frowned, and he blubbled. Then he plopped down his pencils, and he counted off his troubles. Trouble 1, I'm not smart. Trouble 2, I'll never get it. Trouble 3, I don't belong. So 4, forget it. Look at Mr. Fish is leaving school. Is that the right thing to do? I don't think so. He rushed toward the exit. That's enough, I say. School is way too tough, and I'm not going to stay. Then a soft, kind voice said, don't you fret. You don't have to know things you haven't learned yet. Did you hear what she just said? You don't need to know things you haven't learned yet. I love that, right? We have to learn how to do things before we're good at them. Ooh, I like this teacher already. Your classroom awaits. I'm your teacher, Miss Hewitt. I'm here to help you learn, and I know that you can do it. She sounds so nice, doesn't she? You're a fish who is smart. With practice, you will get it. Young fish, you belong. Don't you ever forget it. Ooh, this Miss Hewitt seems just what Mr. Fish needs. The student and the teacher swim a splish splash wish to a door with a sign marked brand new fish. He found his classroom. It's the classroom for the fish who had never been to school before. Do you think this is going to get better for Mr. Fish? I hope so. I feel like with Miss Hewitt as his teacher, how could things go wrong? Miss Hewitt said, "Good morning. I'm excited you're all here. Together we will have a spectacular year. Fact number 1, you are smart. Fact number 2, you can get it. Fact number 3, you belong. So 4, don't forget it." Aren't these great classroom rules? I think these should be on the classroom walls of every classroom in every school. The class got to work and Miss Hewitt helped them through it. They listened, then they tried, and everyone could do it. Do you think Mr. Fish feels better about himself now? I bet he does. Mr. Fish gave a grin. Goodbye, blub, blub, blubbles. No more doubt, doubt, worries. No more flub, flub, flubble, troubles. Look at the picture he made. He drew a picture of himself. Do you like it? I think he did a great job. He swam with his class, Miss Hewitt by his side, as the students and their teachers said with confidence and pride. Fact 1, we are smart. Fact 2, we can get it. Fact 3, we belong. And 4, we won't forget it. And look at this. This is at a class reunion from Miss Hewitt's class. Look at them all grown up still getting together because Miss Hewitt was such a wonderful teacher. Well, I hope you enjoyed my books today. That's all that I have. If you are going back to school, I hope you have a wonderful school year. If you are new and this is your first time going to school, remember the words of Miss Hewitt. You are smart, you will get it, you belong, and don't forget it. All right, bye. I hope you guys all have a wonderful week.
Hi, this is Jamie. I have 2 books for you today. The first is called Patrick Picklebottom and the Penny Book. And this story is written by Mr. J, and the artwork is done by Gary Wilkinson. Young Patrick Picklebottom, who was always so poor, had only 1 penny when he entered the store. He walked past the candy, some toys, and a ball, to the one thing he wished he could buy most of all. Unable to purchase and resigned to just look, he longingly gazed at a dusty old book. "Would you like to buy this?" asked an elderly man. "I'd like to," said Patrick, "but I don't think I can. I've only 1 penny and not 1 penny more." Then he hung his head low and turned toward the door. "As it happens," replied the kind-hearted gent, "this book only costs a single red cent." "Thank you so much," Patrick said to the man. Then, clutching his book, he turned round and was anxious for home, to bask in the glory of his amazing new book and its incredible story. He had made it 3 blocks when he saw his friend Tom on the steps of his porch staring down at his palm. In his hands was a smartphone, and he was swiping away, but he stopped for a moment to look up and say, "Hey, Patrick, come here. I've got this new app. It shows me new pictures each time that I tap." "Pictures of what? And why would I care?" But Tom just looked up with a frustrated glare. "There's shots from all over. There's always a bunch. Here, look. Some girl posted a pic of her lunch." "How else will you know what the world is about?" Patrick looked at his book, said, "I guess I'll find out." He continued towards home through a park and round a tree when he heard a voice call, "Hey, Patrick, come see." And he saw his friend Donna staring up at the sky, but it took him a moment to understand why. Up in the air in the clouds all alone, floating above them, was a stealthy white drone. It veered to the left and swung towards the sun as Donna exclaimed, "See, isn't this fun?" Looking confused, Patrick wondered aloud, "I guess it'd be neat to be up in a cloud, but you're on the ground and you're standing real still. So I'm sorry, but I guess I just don't see the thrill." Donna looked stunned. Then she said with a sigh, "The thrill is controlling machines that can fly. How else can we capture the excitement of flight?" Patrick looked at his book, and he clutched it real tight. Leaving the park and back on the run, he was close to his home as the sky lost its sun. He was at his front door with his hand on the knob when he suddenly heard his neighbor friend, Bob. "Patrick, you're home. Come have a look. I have a new video game, so put down that old book. It's called Monster Clash for my Game Station 5, and I've waited 2 weeks for the game to arrive. We capture these beasts who've escaped from the collars." "But that game," Patrick exclaimed, "it costs $300. Bob just replied, "How else can you battle monsters all day?" But Pat clutched his book and said, "I might have a way." Up in his room, tucked into his bed with a single small lamp glow near his head, he read through his book, every page without fail. Each chapter a story, its own separate tale. He read about kingdoms and lands far and wide, where heroes and monsters and dragons collide. He read about rockets blasting out past the moon. And as his eyes closed, he knew that real soon he'd dream of adventures, and of course there'd be many, from a book that he bought for a red single penny. See, he got his adventures through reading the book, and hopefully you enjoyed me reading that book. I have another one. This one is called The Cool Bean, and it's by Jari John and Pete Oswald. Watch out, here come the cool beans. The cool beans. Oh yeah, check out how they move. Look at the way they swagger. Notice their sunglasses. Wow. The cool beans are known all over school, from house to house, across the town, beyond county lines. In the old days, last year, we were all one big pot of beans. We were a mixed bag, but somehow it worked. Yep, those were the good old days. Then we stopped seeing each other as much. That's just how it is sometimes. You spend less time together even though you're not totally sure why. I watched as the beans I knew so well, the beans from my own pod, became the cool beans. Oh, they were so cool. One of them could play the guitar. Cool. One of them could draw the best superheroes. Cool. One of them could jump higher than any bean I've ever known. Cool. Me? Well, mostly I stayed the same. Sure, I made some small changes. I wore sunglasses. Too big. I slicked my hair back. Too slick. I strutted around. Ooh. I swaggered. Oof. I was still picked last for everything. My clothes never seemed to fit. I snorted when I laughed. I walked into stuff. Whoop. I was an uncool bean for sure. I started thinking of myself as just a common bean with no special skills. I couldn't compete, so I didn't even try. I'd never be a cool bean. It seemed like there were two kinds of beans in the world. There were the cool beans, and there were beans like me. The days all blended together, and I lived my life, and things were just okay. I took tests, I ate lunches, and mostly kept to myself. The cool beans, they continued being cool. I mean, sure, I missed them a bit, but it's not like I was going to say anything. I felt like all the coolness had gotten in the way of our friendship. And that's how it went, until one day. I was in the cafeteria, and I dropped my lunch on my loafers. Oh, no, not again. But then something sort of miraculous happened. Out of nowhere, one of the cool beans helped me clean it up. He didn't even say anything. He just gave me a nod. That was it. Later, I was out on the playground, and I tripped and scraped my knee. Maybe cried a little bit, and everybody saw it. Another one of the cool beans came to my side, and without a word, he dusted me off. That afternoon, I was sitting in class. I wasn't really paying attention, and I didn't notice, but our teacher had called on me. Everybody stared, and I sat there in silence. Nobody said anything. And then just everybody laughed at me. That was it. After today, I was officially a has-been. But then one of those cool beans stood up and came over to me, and everybody watched. She leaned in close and whispered, "Hey, the teacher asked you to read from page 32. Then she gave me a quick wink and went back to her seat. It was a small gesture, sure, but it was also everything. I walked home with a goofy smile on my face. I smiled all the way through dinner. That day made all the difference. It was the day that couldn't have been really bad if not for the kindness of a few cool beans. It gave me a shred of confidence, and that shred of confidence has continued to grow. Somebody had my back, or a few somebodies. After that, I started hanging out with the cool beans again. How you been? Get it? How you been? Not all the time, but sometimes. At lunch, and after school, and even some weekends. Throughout all of this, I realized that it's not about how you look or any of that other silly stuff. It's about a wink or a nod or a smile at just the right moment. It's about dusting somebody off, helping them up again, and pointing them in the right direction. You need a hand? Yes, please. Now that's cool. Hope you enjoyed that. Till next time, bye.
Hi, my name is Jo Toll, and I'm here to read you a story today for Lunenburg Storytime. The name of the book that I'm going to read for you is called It Could Always Be Worse, and it's by Margot Zemek. So let's get started. Once upon a time, in a small village, a poor, unfortunate man lived with his mother, his wife, and his 6 children in a little one-room hut. Because they were so crowded, the man and his wife often argued. The children were noisy and they fought. In winter, when the nights were long and the days were cold, life was especially hard. The hut was full of crying and quarreling. One day, when the poor, unfortunate man couldn't stand it any longer, he ran to the rabbi for advice. "Holy Rabbi," he cried, "things are in a bad way with me and getting worse. We are so poor that my mother, my wife, my 6 children, and I all live together in one small hut. We are too crowded and there's too much noise. Help me, Rabbi. I'll do whatever you say." The rabbi thought and pulled on his beard. At last he said, "Tell me, my poor man, do you have any animals, perhaps a chicken or 2? "Yes," said the man, "I have a few chickens, also a rooster and a goose." "Ah, fine," said the rabbi. "Now go home and take the chickens, the rooster, and the goose into your hut to live with you." "Yes, indeed, Rabbi," said the man, though he was a bit surprised. The poor unfortunate man hurried home and took the chickens, the rooster, and the goose out of the shed and into his little hut. When some days or a week went by, life in the hut was worse than before. Now with the quarreling and crying, there was honking, crowing, and clucking. There were feathers in the soup. The hut stayed just as small, and the children grew bigger. When the poor unfortunate man couldn't stand it any longer, he again ran to the rabbi for help. "Holy Rabbi," he cried, "see what a misfortune has befallen me. Now with the crying and the quarreling, with the honking, clucking, crowing, and there are feathers in the soup. Rabbi, it couldn't be worse. Help me, please." The rabbi listened and thought. At last he said, "Tell me, do you happen to have a goat?" "Oh, yes, I have an old goat, but he's not worth much." "Excellent," said the rabbi. "Now go home and take that old goat into your hut to live with you." "Oh, no! Do you really mean it, Rabbi?" cried the man. Come now, my good man, and do as I say at once," said the rabbi. The poor unfortunate man tramped back home with his head hanging down and took the old goat into his hut. My goodness, that's one crowded hut. When some days or a week had gone by, life in the little hut was much worse. Now with the crying, quarreling, clucking, honking, and crowing, the goat went wild, pushing and butting everyone with his horns. The hut seemed smaller, and the children grew bigger. When the poor unfortunate man couldn't stand it another minute, he again ran to the rabbi. "Holy Rabbi, help me," he screamed. "Now the goat is running wild. My life is a nightmare." The rabbi listened and thought. At last he said, "Tell me, my poor man, is it possible that you have a cow?" "Young or old, it doesn't matter." "Yes, Rabbi, it's true I have a cow," said the poor man fearfully. "Go home then," said the rabbi, "and take the cow into your hut." "Oh, no, surely not, Rabbi," cried the man. "Do it at once," said the rabbi. When some days or a week had passed, life in the hut was very much worse than before. Everyone quarreled, even the chickens. The goat ran wild, the cow trampled everything. The poor man could hardly believe his misfortune. At last, when he could stand it no longer, he ran to the rabbi for help. "Holy Rabbi," he shrieked, "help me, save me, the end of the world has come. The cow is trampling everything. There is no room even to breathe. It's worse than a nightmare." The rabbi listened and thought. At last he said, "Go home now, my poor unfortunate man, and let the animals out of your hut." I will, I'll do it right away," said the man. That night, the poor man and all of his family slept peacefully. There was no There was no crowing, clucking, or honking. There was plenty of room to breathe. The very next day, the poor man ran back to the rabbi. "Holy Rabbi," he cried, "you have made life sweet for me. With just my family in the hut, it is so quiet, so roomy, so peaceful. What a pleasure." The end. What do you think about that? He kept adding more and more to his little hut, but when he let everything go, it wasn't so bad at all. Thanks for being here on Storytime. We'll see you next time. Bye.